It is the calm before the storm right now, with just a few months away to week 1. And typically, when things slow down here in the Dynasty Fantasy football season, we as a community tend to overreact. Every beat report, every injury update, every rumor means more. And what that does is that opens up buy windows for us, potentially in our Dynasty Fantasy football league. So today, I have 5 players that I'm going out trying to buy in my Dynasty Fantasy football leagues right now. And I think you should too. So if this is your first time to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But without wasting any more time, let's hop right into today's buys. All right, so the first player I am buying in my Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues is going to be at the quarterback position. It is Baker Mayfield for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 2025 was a roller coaster for Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. From weeks 1 through 11, we saw Mayfield performing at a high level, just like he had that previous year in 2024, and he was averaging 18.3 fantasy points per game through his first 10 games. However, in week 12, Mayfield suffered a shoulder injury that derailed his season, as well as a few other injuries along the way, and according to his former teammate Levante David, Mayfield played through an oblique injury, a right bicep injury, and a left AC joint sprain, as well as lingering ankle and knee injuries. Now, because of this, his deep ball accuracy and his off-script playmaking ability during the back half of the year were noticeably hindered, and this doesn't account for the fact that the Buccaneers as a team also dealt with a ton of injuries in the wide receiver room, including injuries to Emeka Egbuka, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Jalen McMillan, most of whom all missed at least 5 games or more. And the Bucs offensive line was also banged up during this period of time, leaving the whole offense out of sync. With Mike Evans gone and Ted Hurst being drafted to replace him as the ex-outside wide receiver, there's going to be some getting used to for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but not enough to scare me off of Mayfield at his current quarterback 19 cost in Dynasty leagues. And while there are still some question marks about his future as he's entering his age 31 season and currently negotiating a new contract, I do expect that to sort itself out, and Mayfield should remain the long-term starter here in Tampa Bay. I mean, this is a guy who was legitimately in the MVP conversation before the injuries last year, and Mayfield is the perfect contender quarterback 2 in superflex formats and should still have quarterback 1 upside on a weekly basis. Plus, when you look at Tampa Bay's schedule in the beginning parts of the season, they should have a lot of favorable matchups, which should allow Baker Mayfield to get off to a hot start here in 2026. Let's move on and talk about my wide receiver buy. It's going to be Malik Nabers here for the New York Giants. Now, Nabers is a young superstar, a true cornerstone asset in Dynasty, and those guys are very, very hard to acquire. When he's on the field and healthy, the list of receivers that you would rather have is very slim, and I shouldn't have to convince you on the talent of Malik Nabers, and if I do, I really don't even know what to tell you when it comes to that. Unfortunately, the majority of the offseason talk about Nabers has been centered around the recovery process from an ACL and a meniscus surgery, and it's likely that he is one of these players that starts the year off on the pup and is likely going to be limited after returning to the lineup later in the season. Now, obviously, this would result in Malik Nabers being one of the more disappointing players in 2026. However, there is a small buying window here with Nabers that has opened up due to that ACL injury and a lot of the offseason overreactions. Now, the reality here is the smart managers are probably not going to be selling Malik Nabers, but contenders who are looking for immediate production from veteran players might be if they are nervous about Nabers' availability to start the season and think that Nabers will hurt their chances at winning a championship. And I think if you are not a contender and you can take on some of the risk with your eyes on the future, Nabers is an incredible trade target, knowing the upside that he possesses and having a real shot at a monster bounce back season in 2027 with Jackson Dart, the quarterback. I think at the end of the day, when you look at players like this, buy windows don't open up very often, and when they do, I want to be able to take advantage of it. I don't know how many more buy windows like this are going to happen for Malik Nabers, so I am trying to get him while I can in my Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues. As you know, Dynasty Fantasy Football players are some of the most die-hard football fans out there, and that gives you a real edge when it comes to knowledge about the sport. And that's why this video was made in partnership with Kalshi. Kalshi is a regulated prediction market where you can trade on the outcomes of real-world events. And instead of betting against a sports book, you're trading in a market against other people, kind of like the stock market, using your knowledge to make real-world predictions. If you think you know, Kalshi gives you a way to act out those predictions. It's very simple too. You just choose yes or no. So if you believed Amon-Ra St. Brown was going to finish as this year's wide receiver 1, you would just buy yes. And if you're right, you you would see a profit. Now, one of the cool things about Kalshi is there's no limits just because you're winning. And they also pay interest on open positions, so the long-term predictions can make money for you even while you're waiting. If you want to try it out, Kalshi is giving you $20 when you sign up using the promo code TheLeagueFFB and trade $20 of your own. So what are you waiting for? Use code TheLeagueFFB and start trading on Kalshi today. Let's move on and talk about another superstar type of player. It's going to be Achane for the Miami Dolphins. Achane's seen his value drop from the running back 3 overall to the running back 6 on Keep Trade Cut in just a matter of months. He's been passed up by guys like Ashton Genty for the Las Vegas Raiders, Jeremiah Love, and Amarion Hampton. And while I don't necessarily have an issue with those players passing him in rankings, I don't want us to forget, and I don't want it to get lost in the mix, just how dominant Achane has been for fantasy football purposes. He is coming off of one of the most consistent fantasy football seasons of all time for a running back. He eliminated any doubts people had about him being a legit talent, and he became one of only 4 running backs ever to score 11 fantasy points per game in every single game and ranked number 1 in yards per carry and explosive rush rate among all qualifying running backs. You also add in the fact that he is a pass-catching cheat code that should help him age well at the position and give him a very high floor even in the worst of situations. Now, I understand that is why he is falling down the rankings in most people's eyes. The Miami Dolphins have very low expectations for 2026, but I still think Achane can perform as a locked and loaded RB1, and the Dolphins obviously think so too, giving him a 4-year, $68 million extension, making him one of the highest paid running backs in the league. I'm buying Achane now while others panic about the situation over there in Miami because he truly is an elite talent at the position, and he's young enough that he's a player that I think is still entering his prime right now. He should have a long window for us, and the Miami Dolphins can go find their quarterback of the future in next year's draft class, which should mean just a short-term dip for Achane before the situation drastically changes next year. Now, I have another running back buy as well. It's going to be RJ Harvey, running back for the Denver Broncos. Harvey had a very underwhelming rookie year after the Denver Broncos used a second-round pick on him in the 2025 NFL Draft. He had a slow start of the year as he averaged just 8.5 opportunities per game behind J.K. Dobbins through the first 10 weeks of the season. However, after Dobbins went down to yet another season-ending injury, Harvey took over as the bell cow, and he averaged 18.4 opportunities, 17 fantasy points per game, and finished the season with 12 total touchdowns. Not to mention, he also saw 58 targets, which was tied for the 5th most amongst day 2 running backs over the last decade. Now, the issue here, and the reason why we're seeing a very significant dip in his price, is the Denver Broncos, they decided to bring back J.K. Dobbins, and then they used a day 3 pick on Jonah Coleman in the 2026 NFL Draft. Now, my interpretation of this backfield is that Coleman is the insurance and the eventual replacement option for J.K. Dobbins, and Harvey's role as the main pass catcher and third down type of guy should remain mainly untouched and look closer to that early season role that he had as a rookie. Now, this should make Harvey a low-end RB2, a flex option, but he's already proven that he can do a lot more when given the opportunities, and dynasty managers have already seemed to throw him away. I've seen several trades submitted into our Discord and even just over the internet over the last couple of weeks where RJ Harvey has been acquired for at least a second-round pick, and at those prices, I am more than happy to take a gamble on Harvey as my running back 3 on my roster. Now, I don't think RJ Harvey is elite by any means, but if you're looking for a quality upside bet in a good offense in the NFL, I think the price tag on Harvey is just too good for me to pass up at this point. Now, let's move on and talk about my final buy. It's at the tight end position. It is Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brenton Strange is coming off of a 2025 season where he was handed the keys to the Jacksonville tight end room after they decided to move on from Evan Engram. And there was an obvious trust in Brenton Strange early on with Trevor Lawrence that resulted in a 77% catch rate, including 5 weeks as the tight end 10 or better. Now, unfortunately for Strange, he would miss 5 games during the season due to an injury, and now the team has decided to add 2 more tight ends onto the roster in the NFL Draft, but I'm not letting this cool me off of Brenton Strange, though. With his current KTC ranking being the tight end 16, there is no reason not to take a shot and buy into someone who has already proven it at the NFL level despite being forgotten about in the midst of all of these other Jaguars receiver conversations this offseason. Strange is clearly a pass-catching weapon and was just paid by this regime, getting a 3-year extension worth up to $48 million, giving him a nice floor over the next couple of seasons. And if you're a team that needs some tight end help, why not take a shot on the cheapest receiving option in this Jacksonville Jaguars offense that we are projecting to be one of the better offenses in the NFL, especially because this is a guy who has just as good of a shot as anybody in this receiving core, and you can get him while everybody else talks about Brian Thomas Jr., Parker Washington, and Travis Hunter. So there you have it, folks. That is 5 buys that I'm trying to get right now before NFL training camp. Hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, do me the favor, hit that like button. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. You don't want to miss any future content that is coming out. We got content coming out 3 to 4 times a week, so you don't want to miss any of that. And last but not least, go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with those Dynasty Fantasy Football teams 24/7, 365. But with all of that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today, so I will see you on our next episode. But until then, peace out.